In this video, we're going to look at a very important file in Postgres called PostgreSQL. What is this config file for? For user access control. There are two terms that are commonly used by people, which is authentication and authorization. Authentication is via PostgreSQL config file in Postgres. Authorization is via roles and privileges. In this video, we're going to talk about PostgreSQL configuration file and contents of that file. One thing to remember is as you manage Postgres, you may need to change this file on a frequent basis, as needed of course. And then as soon as you change the config file, you need to issue the PostgreSQL reload command so that the changes will be taken into effect. So now, by default, this file is stored in data directory. When initdb command is invoked, initially, even setting up Postgres, this file is generated. And let us explore the file layout. The files contain several lines, and each line has multiple fields. We're going to see what each field means. Typically, any given record has these specific fields: type, database, user, IP address, host, and authentication method. So we're going to see what each field means. The type field. The type field can have a value of local or host. So the local means it is for socket connections, typically DBS. They use socket connections, and this value is for that. And then when there is a host, this is for TCP connections. Typically, the application connections use the TCP method. Database field can have the database name or all keyword, which means all databases, or it can have replication. This is to serve replication. When we go through the replication chapter, we will have learned more about this. But just remember that it can also have a value called replication. And then the user field. It has username, which the client is using to connect, or it can have all, which means all users. Then the IP address. The client IP address. Here, it means all IPs or a particular IP range that you can assign. And then the authentication method field can have method as password or MD5 or trust or peer. So there are several authentication methods that you can specify depending on your needs. These are the fields in the PostgreSQL file. Each record has these fields. You need to understand what each of these fields mean, because this file is really important in managing Postgres database. In the file, if you see hash mark, it means that line is commented out. And one very important thing to remember with PostgreSQL is there is top-down matching. The matching process starts from the top and it goes down, and whenever a particular record is matched against the user or the host, then it stops there. It doesn't go any farther. So the first record with the matching connection, type or client address, requested database, and username is used to perform authentication. There is no backup. Let's say if one record is chosen and the authentication fails, the next record would not even be considered. This is very important to remember. If no record matches at all, then the access is denied. So the blank lines are ignored. Let's say there are some blank lines in that file. For some reason, those are ignored. And the word HBA in PostgreSQL stands for host-based authentication. When you say PostgreSQL, HBA stands for host-based authentication. How does the file look? This is the sample screenshot of the file, and you can see on the top you have the field names, type, database, user, address, or the host, and then the method. So these are all the things we discussed before, and down below are our entries. It goes from the top and tries to scan each line and match against the corresponding address, or the user, or the database. Let's explore the fields further. Okay, the type field, what the local means. In the type field, if somebody specifies local, it means socket connection, or if somebody specifies host, it's for TCP/IP connections. And then you can also specify host SSL, which means connection is using TCP/IP, but only when the connection is made with SSL encryption. It only accepts connections with SSL encryption. No SSL means connection is using TCP/IP, but only when the connection is made without SSL encryption. This is kind of opposite to the one above, which is called host SSL. And then this one, host GSS Inc. Connections made using TCP/IP, but only when the connection is made with this kind of encryption. There are several types of values, and each has a different meaning. So with that being said, let us explore database field in the config file. When you specify all in the database field, it means all databases, right? You are considering all databases in that record. Also, you can specify a particular database name if you want to restrict access by a database, or you can give a group of databases, comma separated. Also, this is a good feature wherein you can, let's say, have 50 databases. It's hard to list all the databases in the file. You can actually put it in a text file and then give the text file name here. The user field is the next field in the config file, where you can give the username or group of users, comma separated, user 1, user 2, user 3, or all users at usernames.txt, or other files wherein you can give the names of all the users in that file. The next field is address field. So this means all IPs, or you can give a range of IPs, or you can give anything that matches example.com or all IPs. The next field is authentication method, which is important in terms of security. Trust. When you see the word trust in this field, it means the password is not needed. But remember, this is not secure because you are allowing connections without passwords. Reject means if you want to reject a particular user or a particular IP for security purposes, you can reject the connection unconditionally. This is useful for filtering certain hosts. Let's say you don't want connections to connect from certain hosts. Mandatorily, you can use the reject option. Also, the password. That option is here. It requires the client to supply an unencrypted password for authentication. Since the password is sent in clear text over the network, this should not be used on an untrusted network. MD5 authentication is used to verify the user's password when you give MD5. Also, this is another method and is better in terms of security, and these are all the different types that you can give. And if you want to use SSL certificate, you can use that as well. Now, as we discussed before, there is the top-down matching for the file. So Postgres starts with the top line and tries to scan downward. Let's say a user called user1 is trying to authenticate. So it starts from the top, and the top line is for Postgres users. So there is no user1 user record in the top. So it goes further down to the second line. Even the second line doesn't have the matching user information. It scans further. And the third line has matching user information, user1. And then it stops there. It doesn't go to the fourth line. If you see the fourth line, it also has user1 record, but it doesn't go there. As soon as it finds a matching record from the top, which is valid, it stops there and it considers that. If you see the last field of the authentication method for the third and fourth lines, the third line has trust and the fourth line has MD5. Trust means no password, as we discussed, so it allows connections without passwords. Although the fourth line has MD5, it doesn't consider that. Remember, it goes from the top down. And let us explore how the default PG-HBA config looks. As soon as you install and configure Postgres, there are some default entries. This is the default file. Like you have the trust record, which means local is for Unix domain socket connections only. These are for local connections like DBA user, which can locally connect, or anybody that is logged into Unix server. So these are for local connections. You can see that the authentication method by default is trust, which means no password is needed. The user is all and the address is all. This is for IPv4 and this is for IPv6 local connections. So you can see that the host is 127.0.0.1, which means local. And down below, there is also entries by default for replication. Allow replication connections which localhost by a user with replication privilege. Any replication connections from the localhost with replication privileges are allowed. This is by default. These are the default records, but usually these records are changed and multiple records are added and customized according to the requirements.
Cloud DB School. Either we adapt or we slowly fade away. So what's happening in the DBA space? The DBA role is evolving. Either we adapt or we slowly fade away. This is correct. So what about this quote here? DBA role is dying. RIP DBA. This is wrong. DBA role is not going away. There's nothing to worry about. Social proof. Jonathan Lewis, a world-class Oracle expert, I'm worried about the future of DBAs. This is a quote taken from the internet. Either we adapt or we slowly fade away. I was a DBA too, but made the transition to DBE, so it's an evolution. This is a quote taken from a DBA. Major technology trends are reshaping the DBA role at many organizations. This is another quote we found from another article on the internet. Oracle and SQL Server DBAs should learn Postgres, MySQL, Ansible, RDS, Aurora, DynamoDB, automation, etc. RDS Aurora needs database engineers, especially when there are many RDS instances. A Google search for death of the DBA or DBA title dying will yield something like this. This is an example, an excerpt of Google search results. So how do we evolve? Learn open source, Postgres and MySQL, learn RDS, learn Aurora, learn DynamoDB, cloud migration techniques, GCP Postgres and MySQL services, Azure Postgres and MySQL services, automation using Ansible, Terraform, and more. These are some of the technologies you should learn in order to evolve. How Cloud DB School can help you. Currently, you can learn the below by enrolling today. More topics will be added on a monthly basis. Postgres, RDS, Aurora, DynamoDB, cloud migration using SCT and DMS, and you can prepare for the AWS Database Specialty Exam. Again, more will be added each month. Here are the courses you can enroll in today for Postgres. Postgres Architecture, Installation RPM and Source, User Access, Backup and Recovery, Streaming Replication, PG Bouncer, PG Pool, Monitoring, PG Stat Statements and PG Stat Activity, Monitoring PG Badger, and Monitoring Prometheus and Grafana based. For For Aurora, you can learn creating Aurora cluster with Terraform, connectivity issues, restoring from on-prem server to Aurora cluster, Aurora backups and restores, monitoring Aurora cluster, Aurora global cluster, Aurora cloning, Aurora backtracking, and Aurora serverless. For RDS, you can learn creating RDS using console, CLI, or Terraform, RDS backup and restores, RDS HA, multi-AZ versus read replicas, managing RDS, stop, start, and modify, RDS monitoring, events and alarms, RDS versus Aurora. For DynamoDB, we offer DynamoDB introduction, DynamoDB consistency levels, querying DynamoDB, DynamoDB backup and recovery, DynamoDB global tables, and DynamoDB TTL. We also offer database migration courses with SCT and DMS, showing you how to use those different demos. If you use Oracle, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, TB2, or Sybase, any of these courses that we offer may be helpful to you. Again, we will be offering new courses every month. So the question is, why should you pay $4.99 per year to enroll? We offer our services for a one-time fee of $499 US per year to enroll, roughly $41 per month. With this, you get access to all of our current courses to enroll in, along with any that will be added within your year of enroll. You'll get access to Postgres, RDS, Aurora, DynamoDB, Cloud Migration, and AWS DB specialty courses today. More courses will be added on a monthly basis, and all new content will be available to you as we publish it. Automation courses are coming soon. You can check our CloudDB blogs to see our previous work in this space. The DBA role is evolving. Accept the change and start learning and acquiring new skills. Either we adapt or we slowly fade away. Here are some of the most frequently asked questions from our website. Can I get a free trial? Will I be able to clear AWS database specialty exam after enrolling? I'm an Oracle SQL Server DB2 Sybase MySQL/other DBA. How will I benefit from your courses? How will I contact you if I need more information? Answers to all these questions and more can be found on our FAQ page on our website. And remember, if you need any additional information, feel free to reach out to us.
That's it about PG-HBA file. We're going to see some other scenarios later on. Real-time scenarios, which would allow you to see how this configuration file actually works. See you next video.